Like good wine, most women mellow as they age. Those who don't can turn particularly sour. Serving up death is a housewife's favorite dish.
Family doctor is mystified about the cause of death.
Granny's sweet demeanor masks a trail of death.
Ms. Neumar had been married 5 times. All 5 husbands were deceased.
Who's that?
And a possessive divorcee won't share her ex-husband.
Jealousy and greed are 2 of the most common motivators of murder.
These deadly women are old enough to know better, but that doesn't stop them from becoming matriarchs of murder. December 1920, Newark, New Jersey.
What do you think you're doing? Just making it a little more tasty.
21-year-old Francis Creighton is a matriarch in the making.
How dare you?
You can't talk to Mom like that.
But this isn't her home. It belongs to her in-laws.
Fanny, please serve the stew, and I hope it's not spoiled. Fine.
They've welcomed their son John and his new bride, and even found room for her brother.
That made the house a little crowded. It was a little cramped quarters for all of them living in one house.
And when both women try to run the household, tempers boil over.
Her mother-in-law didn't get along with Francis.
Looks very nice.
There's one cook too many. But Anna won't be the head chef for long.
Francis's mother-in-law starts complaining of stomach pains and intestinal pains.
Their disputes are forgotten. Francis rallies around.
Francis gained the trust of people because she came across as caring and nurturing and wanted to take care of them.
But within a week, Anna is dead.
The family doctor writes the death certificate as death by ptomaine poisoning.
She's gone, John.
He admits later he has no idea what caused this death.
One mysterious death follows another.
Less than a year later, Francis's father-in-law dies. Again, the family doctor is mystified about the cause of death.
Francis now has what she wants: control of the house. Next, she takes charge of her brother's affairs.
Francis convinces her brother to take out a life insurance policy on himself,
I'll get you something.
naming her as the beneficiary. It's worth $1,000. Around that time also, he comes into an inheritance from their parents, which is $1,800. It's very shortly after this that he too ends up dead.
This is one death too many. Authorities investigate Francis.
Newark police were very suspicious about her possibly killing her brother for the insurance money. So they had exhumed his body, and they also exhumed the mother-in-law's body.
What they find is arsenic.
poison seemed to be spread through her kitchen, through what should be life-giving. It was her food that was killing the people around her.
Police think it's an open and shut case. But Frances is pregnant, a sympathetic defendant, when she's tried for murdering her brother and mother-in-law.
They resulted in 2 sensational trials in 1923. She's only 24. She's 9 months pregnant, so that creates a lot of natural sympathy in the media and even the prosecutors in the case.
Convicting a mother-to-be is too much for the jury.
She goes to trial twice. Both times she's found not guilty.
We truly will never know how she managed to get acquitted of both of those crimes.
Frances escapes a jail term, but her reputation is in tatters. Her husband stands by her, and they move to Long Island, New York. 14 years later, with her murky past behind her, Frances is once again an ordinary housewife. It's the Great Depression, and times are tough. They take in a family named the Applegates.
So, Everett, how was your trip?
Oh, it was great.
Everett, Ada, and their teenage daughter, Agnes. A roommate for Frances's daughter, Ruth, now 14.
John says we can split expenses.
Hope you enjoy it. We're very pleased to have you.
Thank you.
This is during the Great Depression, and an arrangement like that isn't unusual.
Please call me Abby.
The house is now packed to the rafters.
The Creightons had 1 bedroom. The Applegates had 1 bedroom. And the children went upstairs to the attic where they stayed.
Occupying the most space is Ada Applegate.
Ada is 250, 280 pounds.
Abby! Abby!
She's confined to her bed basically all day.
You were with one of your women, weren't you?
Please don't start, Ada.
She's not loved by anybody in the house.
You're a worthless husband.
As you keep telling me.
Not by her husband, not by her daughter,
Go back to your tarts.
not by Frances.
Everett turns to Frances for comfort.
Everett and Francis started out as friends, living under the same roof. But they ended up much more than that.
Oh, Abby, we shouldn't really.
But Frances isn't the only Creighton on her lover's radar. On Long Island, New York, Francis Creighton is a woman who expects to get her way. She beats 2 murder charges and now takes her lodger, Everett, as a lover. But Frances isn't the only female Everett has eyes for. Her young daughter, Ruth, gets extra special attention.
Everett always wants to be around Ruth, who is just 14 years old.
Fondness is one thing. Sex with a minor, something else entirely. Everett's depravity sinks deeper. He carries on the affair in the same bed as his own daughter. The twisted union won't stay secret for long.
She knows that her lover, Everett, is actually sleeping with her daughter.
Everett's betrayal should make a mother crazy. But perversely, it doesn't.
She's more upset that because they're sleeping together, Ruth might get pregnant.
Everett now pushes his luck, shamelessly flaunting all in front of wife, Ada.
As an outlet, she does a lot of gossiping, a lot of talk around the neighborhood, and a lot of it is angry, mean talk about the goings-on in her own house.
Gossip about the affairs is bad enough. But Francis has a bigger worry. Ada knows another secret.
She knows that Francis was once accused of these poison murders. And she's always saying, I'm going to tell the neighbors, I'm going to tell everyone about this.
The only way to stop the information leaking out is to get rid of the person.
Friday the 13th, September 1935. Ada Applegate learns a bitter lesson. When you challenge Francis Creighton, there are unsavory consequences. Francis calls for help from an old friend, Arsenic.
Francis administers the poison on a gradual level over the next few days and keeps increasing it until Ada is horribly sick. The arsenic is working all over her intestines, her heart, and it's affecting her mind.
Come on, Ada. You have to eat something.
Arsenic is a horrible way to die. Terrible, terrible stomach pains, nausea, vomiting, seizures, ending in death.
After 14 days of ingesting poison, Ada Applegate's horrific ordeal finally ends.
The doctor is pretty mystified, just as the doctors were mystified about the deaths in Newark 11 years before.
But an eagle-eyed citizen connects the dots.
The police aren't even involved in this until a neighbor sends them anonymously a package of newspaper clippings.
Francis's past will be her undoing. She is arrested and stands trial for first-degree murder.
It was the fourth murder that she was likely connected to, but it's the first one she's found guilty of. And for this one, she goes to the electric chair.
Francis Creighton wants complete control. 4 victims discover no grievance is forgotten, no challenge unpunished.
Francis's motive for killing Ada was basically to shut her up, to save face.
When a bent and twisted woman wants the ultimate power over her family, it can lead to murder.
Some matriarchs of murder don't know when to stop.
She probably would have gone on and on and on.
Is that him?
They think they can evade suspicion.
The greed is something that can be tracked back through her life.
Shopping again?
But death always catches up.
She actually thought she could get away with that.
Norwood, North Carolina, 1986. After 18 years, a marriage is in trouble. 55-year-old Betty Gentry thinks her husband Harold is playing around.
Been with your time, have you?
Don't stop me.
And she's right.
Almost there.
He strayed from the fold a few times, and because of that, Betty got pretty angry.
Calm down.
Don't you tell me to calm myself.
Enough.
No wife likes infidelity in a husband.
Stop that.
They had a bit of a disturbing relationship,
You push me too far, I tell you.
always arguing, and things didn't go really well.
Harold's unhappy too. Betty's retail therapy is making them broke.
How'd you pay for all that?
Card.
Betty did like money. Betty did like to be able to buy things.
You gonna send us broke, B?
It's my money, too.
Going through money at a rapid rate made her feel good, and it became a habit.
Then one weekend, in July 1986, the house goes quiet.
Betty, you home yet?
Betty has left without a word to anyone.
Mr. Gentry did not know she had left for the weekend.
Betty been by? Haven't seen her since yesterday morning.
He was unaware of where she had gone or what she was doing.
I'm a little worried. Crazy woman.
She just disappeared.
That Sunday, Harold returns home from dinner with friends. There's someone waiting for him.
Mr. Gentry was shot multiple times. It was heinous and it should not have occurred.
The killing appears to be a result of a robbery gone wrong.
But there were some things that didn't add up. Nothing of real value seemed to be taken.
And there were no signs of forced entry into the house.
So someone had to give them access.
The murder of Harold Gentry puzzles the investigators.
Just stop here.
I live here.
When Betty returns home to the horrifying scene,
Mrs. Gentry,
Yes?
I'm sorry to tell you, but your husband's been shot.
Is that him?
Yes, it is.
the widow's reaction puzzles them even more.
Betty was very calm and cool upon arriving at home to find out that her husband had been shot 6 times.
I just put down my things.
The police thought this was odd. Police see people really grieving, really hysterical. Betty didn't fit the mold.
But no one suspects Betty of anything more than a cold heart. And she's got an airtight alibi.
Ms. Neumar claimed to be in Marietta, Georgia at the time, having repairs done on a truck.
For 21 years, Harold's murder remains unsolved until the North Carolina police set up a cold case task force that includes forensic pathologist Dr. Laura Petler.
Due to the persistence of the family, we were looking at this case to try to see if we could come to a resolution.
The investigation reveals that Betty is a woman with a complicated past.
I noticed and discovered that Ms. Neumar had been married 5 times and that all 5 husbands were deceased.
July 14th, 1986. An unknown intruder shoots Harold Gentry, execution style, in his North Carolina home. The murder remains a mystery for 21 years.
Police thought that Harold had died because he walked in on a robbery. And they couldn't find who pulled the trigger.
In 2007, the cold case is reopened. And this time, the investigators focus on Betty and her past. Starting in the 1960s, Betty is married to sailor Richard Sills.
Great spot. It sure is.
The couple seem happy in love.
Betty put on a very good social image. So that people who did not know her well thought she was a very nice, sweet woman.
Betty was kind and sweet and caring because she had to. How else was she going to get men to marry her? And that was her goal.
But behind closed doors, Betty's true nature is revealed.
Shopping again? You're gonna send us broke!
Oh, for goodness sakes, you're so cheap you'd have me dress in rags.
She was a very nasty, manipulative woman who would walk on anybody to get what she wanted and would stop at nothing to get it.
I've had enough. Go to bed!
Not walk away from me.
On April 18th, 1967, the arguing escalates.
Betty claims Richard Sills actually shot himself after they had an argument. This is highly unusual. In the world of suicide, people almost always do it alone.
What's your emergency?
Hello, I need the police.
He was shot twice. One bullet went into his heart, and the other nicked his liver.
My husband just shot himself.
Now that's not a suicide.
But Betty flies under the radar.
There was never an autopsy, which is the whole problem with that case.
Investigators dig deeper and find this is not Betty's first brush with death.
I'm sorry, I have some bad news.
Okay.
We found the body of your husband, James.
12 years earlier, her second husband, James Flynn, comes to a peculiar end.
James has a mysterious ending to his life. He was found frozen to death in his truck. The only thing we know about James for sure is that he was married to Betty, and now he's dead.
In 2007, as the cold case team pieces together Betty's life, there will be one more suspicious death.
Here, John.
Betty's fifth husband, 79-year-old John Neumar.
At the time that he married Betty, he had about $300,000 in savings.
He is diagnosed with sepsis, a blood infection. In October 2007, John loses his fight. What Betty does next is shocking.
Hello? This is Betty? Yes, hello, Betty. I thought you'd want to know your father's dead.
But John, can I see him?
No, you can't see him. He's already been cremated.
The children didn't even know he was gone till after Betty had had his body cremated. A lot of people suspect that Betty was so quick to cremate the body because she had done something to cause his death.
There's another shock. John's life savings are gone.
By the time he died, the couple was $203,000 in debt, and all the money was gone. Nobody could figure out where it went.
With John's body gone up in flames, the cold case team concentrates on the murder of Harold Gentry. Finally, they get a break.
Law enforcement was led to believe that Betty had attempted to hire one or more people.
Would you know anyone that might kill my husband?
To kill Harold Gentry.
Pardon? I want to kill my husband. You don't mean that.
They find neighbors Betty tried to recruit to kill.
Every word.
I'm going to take this inside. I'll see you later, hey?
Okay.
Betty had become so grandiose about her ability to get away with murder, she actually approached other people to have them do it and thought she could get away with that.
But she doesn't. In May 2008, Betty is finally arrested and charged with solicitation to commit murder. But before she stands trial, nature intervenes. Betty dies of cancer in June 2011. She takes to her grave the truth about what happened to James Flynn, Richard Sills, and John Neumar.
The fact that Betty was considered a suspect in 3 of her husband's deaths tell me she very likely was a black widow. Marry for money, kill for more money.
Somehow, Betty eludes suspicion all her life. No one pieced together her past.
The most shocking thing to me about the entire situation is that nobody connected her histories from one state to the next state and one situation to the next situation in more than 50 years.
Jealousy is an overpowering emotion.
She was consumed with his meager holdings.
Next, you'll be leaving everything to her and nothing to the boys.
It has no borders or limits.
She told her to be careful or she might get a knife.
And age is no barrier.
It's not something you really see very often.
The working-class suburbs of Melbourne, Australia, in the 1990s.
To our happy family. To our happy family.
Millicent and Stanley Cumberbatch have much to be thankful for.
Oh, look at that!
They've raised 2 healthy boys and have a caring relationship. But this isn't marital bliss. It's a happy divorce.
Stanley and Millicent had been apart for a number of years, but it appeared as though that had sort of reconciled and had an apparently good relationship.
Their married life had been a battleground.
It is said bad attention is better than no attention. And when Millicent wasn't getting anything from Stanley,
I asked you to put those in the dishwasher.
she would start a fight.
Hey, I said I'd do it.
Look, they need to go away.
I told you.
Over the years, the verbal disputes escalate into violence.
You don't earn enough money.
She would goad Stanley,
You are completely useless.
and Stanley would react by hitting her.
Couples fall into patterns of behavior, and for Stanley and Millicent, their dance was combat. It became the norm for how to relate to each other.
In 1989, Millicent and Stanley separate, splitting their small assets.
There was a settlement. I think she got about $90,000.
With the money divided, Millicent and Stanley do what few divorced couples can. They rebuild a friendship.
She told people that he would take her to the doctors and he'd organised a diet for her. They were able to get on well enough while living separate lives.
Things are going so well, Millicent often sleeps over at Stanley's home. But strictly in the guest room.
So, what time?
She was quite comfortable turning up at his house and being in the same place as him.
Why shall I bring?
Could be a number of times a week.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Most people would be happy and relieved to be away from a spouse with whom they had fought for 38 years.
Oh, that's great. All right.
Not Millicent. She wanted more.
Who's that?
A friend.
When Stanley finds new love in 1996, old hostilities resume.
Hello, Stanley.
And something new.
I'm Stanley's wife.
Ex-wife.
Hello.
Jealousy. While Stanley's affair doesn't last much longer than a year, Millicent doesn't believe him.
Millicent seemed to have thrived on the jealousy. She believed he still loved her, and she couldn't stand it.
Millicent doesn't want Stanley, but she doesn't want anyone else to have him.
Hello? This is Millicent, Stanley's ex-wife. Oh, what can I do for you, Millicent? Stay away from my ex-husband. I haven't spoken.
There were signs Millicent was going to do something bad.
And if you're not careful, you'll end up with a knife in your back.
Certainly calling Stanley's ex-girlfriend and threatening to stab her in the back with a knife. Pretty strong signal. And yet, she was ignored.
Can you believe it? He's still seeing that woman. Oh, you should have heard him. Oh, I'm worried he might leave us something. He lied to me.
Millicent's working herself up into a frenzy.
Well, he has upset me. I'm upset because he's probably going to cut me and the boys out of his will.
She fears their sons will be shut out of what is rightfully theirs.
You and your brother should get everything when I go.
There was no evidence that he was going to leave it to the other woman. As far as we know, he was going to leave his estate to his family. She would talk about this often, almost to the point of obsession.
Millicent became so obsessed, she took matters into her own hands. Millicent had to control everything.
For Millicent, where there's a will, there's a way. Melbourne, Australia, September 2000. 72-year-old Millicent Cumberbatch has one thought on her mind.
Next, you'll be leaving everything to her and nothing to the boys.
Are she and her sons the beneficiaries of her ex-husband's will? But the only man who knows, Stanley Cumberbatch, has vanished.
Hello, please.
Millicent had called the police saying that she'd been round to the house, she couldn't get any response.
Yes, I've been over, I've knocked on the door, but there's just no reply.
Okay, we'll send someone over there as soon as we can.
Thank you, I really appreciate it.
Thanks for your call, ma'am.
4 days after his last sighting, police find Stanley's body. It's a baffling murder. There are few leads and no motive when police deliver the grim news.
You hear about my husband?
It might be best if we come inside.
Let us come inside, Mrs. Cumberbatch. You need something.
Millicent is more than happy to help the investigation.
A lot of what the police had to rely on was from Millicent's account. She said she'd gone to his house twice, she'd knocked on the door, or knocked on windows, and when she couldn't get any response, had slept on a neighbour's veranda, thinking she might get him when he came home.
But her story doesn't add up with the neighbors. They don't see her outside the house. They see her inside.
It put the lie to her version of events.
With her story shot down in flames, police move in.
Police then went to her house. They executed a search warrant.
Don't go in there.
What have you got there?
Nothing. I'm just going to the
I need to see that, thank you.
But it's private.
They found his bank book, some documents, and I think in her handbag they found his original will.
The stolen documents are her undoing.
She was the first suspect and the prime suspect.
Police piece together the true story. On the 5th of September, 2000, consumed by years of resentment. Millicent makes a surprise visit to the home of her ex. Stanley pays the ultimate price for her insecurity.
He was hit, I think it was 8 times in the head. Was also stabbed after that in the back and I think in the throat.
Rest in peace, Stanley.
There are many ways to kill someone without touching them. But that wasn't good enough for Millicent. She beat her husband of 38 years to death.
Millicent may not look like she has the means, but her motive is beyond doubt.
The motive seemed to be greed. It almost seemed to go a little beyond the normal idea of, well, I just want the money.
Jealousy and greed are two of the most common motivators of murder. And Millicent was a green-eyed monster.
On May 9th, 2002, Millicent May Cumberbatch is found guilty of murder and sentenced to 15 years in prison.
It was certainly a hefty sentence for her age. It meant that she'd be 84 before she would be released from prison.
No one close to Millicent thought the senior citizen capable of such a horrific crime.
We don't think of grandmothers as murderers. Millicent is proof that a woman is never too old to be a killer.
These deadly women proved age is no barrier to brutality. Francis Creighton used poison to get her own way. Betty Neumar was every husband's nightmare. And Millicent Cumberbatch eliminated her ex for a meager inheritance. The lives of family and friends meant nothing to these matriarchs of murder.